This is the voice of the Report of the Week, signing on. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. This is VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week. And, this is VORW Bird Edition. It's a Sunday morning, bright and early. It's only 7 a.m. There's the morning chorus, as they call it, of birds. So you can enjoy some VORW with some added bird noises in the background. Okay, good springtime birds. I guess it fits the mood. This VORW, I'll say it outright, and I'm sure you can see it. And I say this in foresight, really. But I doubt this is a very long one. I'd say this is probably an hour long. Hour and a half at absolute most. And I'd like to first and foremost say I know this isn't going to be the longest VORW ever. And going into that, I know it. You might say, well, why is it not a long program? That's for a variety of reasons. Most specifically, number one, health has been not the best lately. And sometimes maybe filming even a little 10-minute review, I try not to show it. I just, put on a happy face. But even that can be difficult as of late. And secondly, unfortunately, this channel's been going through a lot of organized harassment, some of which has been targeting this very VORW show. And because this is a target at this point, mostly for harassing letters, which are really trying to masquerade as legitimate fan letters, it's made trying to screen what letters I read to make sure that they don't have any sort of bad meanings or messages or names in them, etc., has become extraordinarily difficult. Plus, I've been flooded with spam emails, spam offers, etc., and it's just been such a pain lately. I don't know what happened, but as soon as the channel crossed this 200,000 threshold, it's just boom, full-blown blast of organized harassers, spammers, people claiming that they're people who they aren't, you name it. As a result, I'll say it outright. Now, keep in mind, if you are a VORW Radio International listener, this doesn't affect you because the radio show has not been targeted by anything. I guess they don't care about shortwave, I don't know. But if you are thinking about writing into this program, just be very wary at this point, just because I've got a lot of garbage flooding the inbox now. So with the quotas and everything, just please know that if your letter doesn't get read and you're a regular writer and a loyal fan, please know I know who you are. I don't have anything against you. It just, the quota might have gotten a bit smaller. And also in terms of production, given all the circumstances, I don't know when the next VORW on YouTube will be after this. It'll be when it is. I feel bad to say that, but it'll be when it is. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3.5, 4 weeks. It'll be when it is. I can't give dates because when I do that, and then if things get bad and I can't get to that date, then I'm putting myself on the line. And then I have to say, well, what can I do? Do I just back on my word? Or do I just put together something that may be mediocre and call it a day? So it will be when it is, but hopefully in the near future. And I think that's the safest route to take, the best bet, and the best route going forward. Now, on to things. A few subjects I want to talk about, then a few letters to read, and that'll be that. I'm sorry for the pause, it's just in reflection, it's tough, and that's all. I don't mean to waste your time here. I found out recently that you might remember back in the day, the energy drink review. It's actually the most watched energy crisis review, I think, out there. It's Energy Crisis Energy Drink Review number 150. And it's for Red Bull, the summer edition. It's just shy of a year since I filmed it. I can't believe it's been a year. I can't believe it. But the review, of course, is filmed outside, and I'm sitting out there at the table. Nice forest background. And I think, as the thumbnail shows, this review is most notable for the fact that I'm doing a standard energy drink review, and as I get into the synopsis of the drink, this cat, jumps right up on the table and steals the show. Just jumps right up, hops right up, and becomes a star of the show. He just kind of jumps up, sits there, sometimes cleans and preens himself, and I got a good laugh out of it, and the audience enjoyed it very much so. It is most unfortunate that I make this announcement, but the cat that appeared in that video has recently died. What makes it worse for me is the fact that this cat didn't die of any sort of natural causes, or even by accident. Unfortunately, someone sadly killed him. And that's a terrible thing to say. It's something I wish I didn't have to say, but someone unfortunately ended his life. And I guess you want the details. That's fine, I'll share them. This wasn't my cat, first and foremost. I didn't own the cat, but think of it like a family pet, more or less. Where I was still in the same building as this cat, in the same household, for months. And of course, over time, I became friendly with him, as he became friendly with me, and we kind of made a little, kitty friendship, I guess. I don't know. He'd sometimes hop out while I was listening to the Shortwave and sit on the table with me or sit next to me, and he opened up to me. He was never aggressive or anything, and at least became familiar with me, kind of took me in as friendly person, at least. What ended up happening, unfortunately, and I know this wasn't accidental, because I lived there for a while. I know how things are and where things are. Unfortunately, one of the people nearby, one of the neighbors, very likely, came over, poured out a bunch of antifreeze, which the cat, his name was Willie, like Willie Nelson, which he proceeded to drink. He became extremely ill, was taken to the vet, and just the quantity thereof in his system was just so much, he unfortunately died soon after. So someone unfortunately poisoned him, and I know there were some very sick people who felt the need to do that, and he never bothered anyone. He never was one of those pets that went into other people's yards and messed around. He just stayed confined onto their property. He was a cool cat. He just hung out, and someone still felt the need to kill a poor innocent animal. I'm sure whoever did that was a psychopath who felt the need to end an innocent living creature's life needlessly. But you know, it reinstates the fact that there's, of course, always going to be terrible people in this world. You know, always have been, always will be, but even in the, you know, even in your local neighborhood, everywhere, can't escape it. So that was such a disappointment. It really hit me hard, because, you know, I never expected that. I thought he'd be around a lot longer, and someone killed him. Such a terrible thing. That's such a terrible thing, ladies and gentlemen. The only good thing, at least, is that he's forever immortalized here on YouTube. And if you want to kind of reminisce over his little appearance, you can watch the video there, the energy drink review, and you'll kind of see him do his thing. But to answer all your questions, because I know it's a question that I got a lot of the time, will he ever make an appearance in another video? I hate to say the answer to that is no. I needed to get that out of the room first, because that's what was at the forefront of my mind as I record this. You know, it's a terrible shame. Terrible shame it had to happen like that. But it needed to be said. It needed to be said as it is, no sugarcoating. And that it has. Two other things I'd like to discuss before we read letters. Number 2, in terms of the radio program. First and foremost, I suggest you do listen to the VORW radio programs. There's a lot more freedom of speech, when it comes to what you can say and do over the YouTube, or the shortwave airwaves, than there is on YouTube. You might say, no, you can say whatever you want on YouTube. No, you can't. You can say whatever, but you'll get penalized if you say the wrong thing. So, somewhat more free speech when it comes to the shortwave broadcasts. But I suggest you listen, if anything, for the first 10 minutes of talk. But you have 50 minutes of music after that. The VORW Radio International broadcast is an hour-long program aired each Thursday, which can be heard on TuneIn Radio, live streamed, on your phone on the TuneIn app. It can be heard on SoundCloud, and it can also be heard on various shortwave frequencies every Thursday. The program, as I said, the first 10 minutes are miscellaneous talk, and the remaining 50 minutes are listener-requested music. So I have a little bit of talk at the beginning, and then I balance that out with the rest of the hour of listener-requested music. Music requests can be sent to vorwinfo@gmail.com. And it's just a fun show overall. It's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable time. Recording those lately, because of my health, has been a little slow, but it can be done in a day usually, because it's mostly splicing in the music. I apologize for the frequent clicking in this session of talk right now, but sometimes I do need a bit of a break to catch my breath again. But it is fun. I'd recommend that you listen when you can. I suppose I'll give the airing times. If you want to listen to the program, you can tune in every Thursday at the following times. The first broadcast on shortwave is to East Asia, specifically Japan, although it has been received pretty well in South Asia too. So if you're in India, Bangladesh, etc., you can catch reception from there. The broadcast can be heard as well in Eastern Europe, Russia, and also beyond the target area of Japan as well. If you're in Hawaii, you can also tune in there because, of course, the way shortwave propagation works, the signal isn't just going to stop at the ocean, it's going to keep going. So if you're anywhere between Hawaii and Japan, if by the extremely minute chance that you're on a ship or a container vessel, a cruise ship, a military, whatever, I highly doubt anyone here is, but if you are, you can tune your radio to 98.75 and catch it. But anyway, the first broadcast is to East Asia and beyond on the frequency of 98.75 kilohertz every Thursday. The time is 8 a.m. Eastern. The next broadcast thereafter is at 4 p.m. Eastern on 11,580 kilohertz to Europe and Eastern North America. At 6 p.m. Eastern, the transmission continues on 99.55 kilohertz to South and Central America. And at 8 p.m. Eastern, on the frequency of 7490, 9395, and 9455 kilohertz, the broadcast to North America commences. The live stream on TuneIn Radio and on the TuneIn Radio app is also at the time of 8 p.m. Eastern. All of those broadcasts are each Thursday. There is an update, however. All these broadcasts that I mentioned, all of them, with the exception of one, have a good listenership. The 98.75 kilohertz broadcast to Asia, very popular in Japan with Japanese shortwave listeners. There's a whole shortwave listeners, almost club you'd call it, of just regular listeners and new listeners every week that tune in from Japan on shortwave. There's also regular listeners, however, in Russia, India, parts of China, and even as far as Australia and New Zealand that tune in on the regular. So, that broadcast is fine. It reaches an audience. It gets out there. The broadcast on 99.55 to South America and Central America is well received too. I haven't had that broadcast going for too long, but I get reception reports every week. Listeners in and around the target area tune in from Mexico, from Brazil, from Chile, even Argentina, you name it. Venezuela too. There was a listener, where else? Colombia. So there's people there that tune in as well. That broadcast is effectual. Then the three transmissions to North America, 7490, 9395, and 9455 kilohertz, all propagate well to the continent, and those are by far the most popular transmissions. Those are certainly staying. But then there's the broadcast to Europe on 11580 kilohertz. I guess I don't know. Maybe the signals just aren't that good. Maybe there just aren't no one's interested. Who knows? A lot of competition, I don't know. But for whatever reason, that broadcast just doesn't get a lot of listeners. I'll cite an example. The last couple weeks I've been asking, if you tune in on 11,580 kilohertz shortwave, please let me know. It's imperative that you let me know that you're listening. And for that broadcast, I'll cite actual figures here. 2 weeks ago for that broadcast, I got one email, and that's it. Only one email from anyone in Europe listening. And it was from a listener in Italy who listened, out of the whole hour-long program, he listened for 2 minutes. And that's it. And that's really not even listening. He listened for, and it wasn't like he listened to the last 2 minutes and wanted to find out. No, he just listened to, like, from, say 4:30 to 4:32. And his only description was talk program. So I don't really consider that he really actually listened and enjoyed the program. And then the week after that was just one email as well, from a fairly regular listener in the UK, but he mentioned to me, and he had a very nice letter to read. I will, I absolutely give him credit. He actually listens, but he said, that the signal just doesn't get into his location that well as it used to. But he understood the reasons why. Well, anyway, because of such low correspondence, I would therefore believe effectiveness of the broadcast, I'm going to discontinue all transmissions to Europe because the VORW radio program is listener funded, and I'm not going to waste anyone's money on a broadcast with one listener or two listeners. So I'm going to repurpose the funds and reallocate them to start up a new service to Western North America specifically, because I've had lots of emails from listeners in California, Oregon, Nevada, Utah, even Washington State, Western Canada. I mean, I'm talking dozens of emails from listeners there who either have shortwave radios or want to get a shortwave radio. So I'm going to serve them because it's clear there's an audience out there eager to listen. I'm going to start up a service coming up in June to serve them as best I can. More updates about that will be in the future, but that's where things stand. If you are in Europe and you do tune in on shortwave, I know, number one, I do apologize for the termination of service, but at this point in time, I just can't afford to do that anymore. And I would like the money that comes in from listeners to go, to better services. It's not your fault, it's just how things are. But if you do still want to listen on shortwave and you're in Europe, I highly recommend you either try to listen at 6 p.m. Eastern, on 99.55 kilohertz. The broadcast to South America will sometimes make it into Europe, but your best chance is to stay up late and listen at 8 p.m. Eastern. That might be midnight for you, that might be 1 a.m. But the frequency is 7490 and 9395. Oftentimes will have a tendency to make it into Europe pretty nicely, so I highly recommend you tune into those instead. This is a short and unusual interjection, but it needs to be done. If you look at the video right now, you see these two pictures in succession. This is an email that came in from Matt. He simply wrote, "I'm sorry to hear about Willie," and I would assume he was your cat. He was, as you had heard now, he wasn't my cat specifically, but I did get to, know him a bit. He said, my best friend in the whole world died in 2012. His name was Lou. He was a black and white cat. And now Buddy is my current cat, whom I also love. They're both rescues. I'm sorry for your loss. And he has to put these two pictures in the VORW here, which I wanted to include as an introduction so you know which is which. The white cat here, sitting on top of the fence post there, that is Buddy. And the second cat, right there, that's Lou. So those are the two cats. You just asked if they could be featured in this VORW, and I obliged. And so those are his two cats. Coming up next, of course, is the mailbag program, where a select number of letters will be read and responded to. Take care. Let's jump to letters. If you are interested in writing into this program with your questions, comments, etc., you can email me at repweekinterview1@gmail.com. repweekinterview1@gmail.com. As I mentioned at the beginning of this program, and I'll reiterate again, be mindful writing in, and perhaps if you don't have a lot to say, just take the weeks off this show and take a break from writing for the YouTube VORW. Now, the radio VORW, writing is still important because it's my only means of being able to see audience analytics. Now, emails for that are still important, just so I can make sure these broadcasts are still effective. Okay. But it seems as though, with the YouTube show now, unfortunately this form of letters and letter reading is now aggressively being used as an avenue for harassment sent my way, unfortunately. So again, if you don't have a lot to say this show, you can just take the week off, collect your thoughts. But if you still write in, you can go for it. repweekinterview1@gmail.com is the email address. Okay. With that being said, let's open up the computer here. Let's open it up. And what I did was, for consolidation purposes, I did this a day or two ago, a couple days ago. I got all the letters I was going to read condensed into a document. And now let me find the document. I think this is it. Here we go. So I do apologize if your letter hasn't been read, but I think we all know the drill now when it comes down to that. Also, for my sake, I have to say, this VORW program is not being used to communicate directly to any one specific individual. So if you think that I am recording these just for you, I hate to say, but you are mistaken. These programs are constructed each and every time for a general listening audience. That includes you, but it is not specifically intended for you. There are no secret or hidden messages just for you. There are none of that, and this is not being done just for you. So I'm not talking directly to you unless I'm specifically addressing your letter. Because that, unfortunately, has been a problem, too. Seems like everything under the sun, right, coming my way. Okay, anyway, we do have a selection of letters here. Good letters. Around 9 letters or so, I think, of pretty good length, from good people. So we'll just get to reading those, right? The sun's kind of shining in the screen here. I'm gonna move over into some shade. It's all for the best. I want to do this most efficiently. I think this is a good spot to do it. Let me make sure it rained pretty recently. I want to make sure the chairs here are dry. This one's dry. Yeah, this is good. Good place to sit. No sun glare. None of that to deal with. This is good. Looks good. Okay. Let's do this. VORW letters. Hey there, Review Bra. I hope this email finds you in good company. I'm glad to hear you are remaining positive in light of the future of your channel. We should all take notes, as you are very wise and have such an admirable attitude. As I have recently found a step-by-step instruction book from the 80s for a mere $2, I'm getting back into the practice of acrylic painting. In high school, I very much enjoyed painting, but was discouraged towards the end by teachers and counselors, as art is not a viable source of income, and apparently money is still all that important in this world. Now that I am older, I do understand the importance of money, but I don't see it fit to have my life revolve around climbing some sort of metaphorical ladder. The workbook has done wonders for that spark I had lost. It has proven to be comprehensive enough for me to follow with confidence, and the varying landscapes included are right up my alley with my love for the outdoors. I find sitting down and working through a painting to be very relaxing and a great way to ease my mind in this troubling world. I may not be a professional just yet, but like with everything, practice is key, and I see myself improving with completion of each new painting. This leads to a question I have for you. Have you ever tried your hand at any art mediums? There are so many out there: painting, drawing, sculpture, and performance. So many ways to form an expression. Heck, I'd even consider your radio program to be a form of art. I look forward to future uploads, and I can listen to you talk about Shortwave for hours. I'd also love to see an in-depth suit series. Best wishes from Heather. Thank you, Heather, for your letter. First and foremost, one thing that I do think I should also address in this program, in terms of the future of the channel, because it has been a while since the last VORW. The way the channel looks right now, ad revenue, etc., was the ad rates. Sometimes I wonder if this is just some sort of experiment that YouTube is doing. I don't know. The ad rates started going up a bit, and now they're going back down again. So, isn't that something? So it seems like there's a tiny bit of progress. There was a little bit more, but now it's as though there's almost none at this point. I don't know. I'll continue to keep you all updated. There's all these rumors going around that in the middle of the month, the adpocalypse is gonna get resolved. I'll just have to wait and see, but there's been very, very few significant developments with this, really. Situation is just has flatlined. There were a few days where it was starting to look up again, and it was starting to look good, and then it was like a little hump. It went up, and now it's back down to the usual abnormal, but now usual low. So I'm still looking to the future. Still gonna keep this going no matter what. Hopefully my own health will get better, and I'll back to the usual, right? Anyway, to answer your question, art mediums, well, with the exclusion, because some people will actually consider this channel and all that I do with it to be art. I just consider this doing whatever I'm doing, just doing my thing. So in terms of traditional art, painting, sculpting, etc., I've tried my hand at it, and the best I can do is abstract, but trying to draw anything, I can't do it, unfortunately. It's just, I'm just not good at it. There's a story that I'll tell every now and then, and I'll recite it again right now. When I was young and I was taking an art class in school, one of the objectives of a project was to find a famous painting and replicate it. And now that I think about it, the teacher must have done this assignment just to bust everyone. I mean, just to get such a laugh out of it, to try to get these little kids to replicate the Mona Lisa, you know, by these exemplary, talented, famous artists, and to try to see whatever, you know, a 7-year-old, 10-year-old can do with it. So it must have just been a joke. It must have just been some joke that they were just getting such a laugh out of. Well, I decided to do a landscape painting because my drawing with faces is... I can't do it. So I took my hand at a landscape painting. And when the work was completed, they had an art gallery available to the public. Mostly, of course, you know, parents and relatives and stuff. Where they would have the art shown off. And they would have the student's rendition of the piece next to a picture of the original. Mine was so terrible, people thought it was an abstract piece, I'll just say that. It was terrible. So, maybe I can do some abstract art if I ever decide to go into it. But anything else is, I hate to call it such, but failure. And I'm not ashamed or embarrassed of that, this is just how it is. I'm just not good at it, that's just not where, I guess, my talent lies. I'm not a drawer, or a painter, or a sculptor. You know, it's just how it is. Anyway, on to the next. Regular listener Brax wrote in. He just really had a quick question. He said, I wanted to ask you if you miss your old night walks. I just wanted to know if there was anything you were replacing them with to pass the time, since you did enjoy them so much. Kind regards. Well, to answer your question about the night walks, and also, by the way, I did enjoy the George Strait piece he requested for the radio broadcast, too. King of Country, as they call him. I've started to find an alternative, you know? Now, yes, I will pace around quite a bit, outside as I am now, but in terms of an actual structured walk, I have been starting to find some alternatives. Unfortunately, though, because the location is much more public, I can't walk around there and just talk to myself with this recorder. You know, I just don't feel that comfortable doing that there, since it's kind of an area more traveled than what was up in the Big Apple. But we'll see. We'll see. But that's where that stands right now, at least, to keep you all updated. But thank you for your inquiry regarding that. Our next letter. I had a question for this current VORW. Are there any meats, toppings, or condiments that you don't like? I thought you mentioned that you're not a big fan of eating chili fries, but is there any specific ingredient in a meal that you would normally order without it if you weren't reviewing it? Or are you the world's least picky eater? Also, how in the world do you eat hot wings by themselves? I'd start sweating, even without some ranch, on even mild wings. Thank you. That was from Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. When it comes to that, I mean, it's a big case-by-case basis. I think the way things are, especially with fast food places and commercialized chain establishments, even local places. Some places will do certain ingredients better than others. One thing that I remember sometimes when it comes to pizza toppings, let's say, is sausage. Sometimes I'm just not a big fan of sausage. But it depends on the place. There's some places where the sausage just, I don't like it on my pizza. I'm not a fan of it. There's other places where it's perfectly fine. Same thing with sometimes olives, you know, or some types of mushrooms, for instance. Some places can do them great, others not so much. Is there one, even sometimes something as simple as tomato sauce? Sometimes it's too herbal, sometimes it's too runny, sometimes it's too thick. With these ingredients, there's nothing that I really hate outright. It's a case-by-case basis. Are there some conglomerations of ingredients that I don't like? Absolutely. Specifically, as you said, like cheese fries, chili fries. I will never, ever find myself getting those. If I'm not filming a review. So, that's one thing specifically. Right there. You also asked the question about the hot wings. Yeah, I'm rereading that. Well, when it comes to hot wings by themselves, it's just also just in terms of flavor. My mouth, I guess, can be somewhat sensitive to the heat, but maybe it's not incredibly, overly sensitive. I mean, obviously, like those very hot suicide wings from Planet Wings did an extreme number on me. They were hottest things I've ever eaten. But standard mild or medium wings, I'll eat them just fine. I guess it's just the sensitivity of people's mouths to heat is always a bit different. I know that some people, I don't know the word for this. I was researching these a couple weeks ago, and there's a technical term for it. I think it's called, let me look this up. I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing. Yes. Some people have a fissured tongue. I don't know if you have that or not. You can look it up, and it's something that looks incredibly painful, where it looks like your tongue is kind of cut up. And I know that if you have a fissured tongue, mild or severe, and it's really not a big problem at all, but it does make you very sensitive to certain types of food. If you do have what they call a fissured tongue, then it may make you more sensitive to spicy food, hence the sensitivity. I don't have a fissured tongue, so usually mild or medium wings don't bother me too much, but when it comes to hot wings, and even hotter, such as, you know, the atomic wings, suicide wings, all those challenges, nuclear wings, whatever their name is for them, from place to place, you know, then there might be some issues. And that's where things stand. I think it just comes down to the sensitivity of the person's mouth and tongue and all of that. It's a, you know, it's a person by person type of difference. So thank you again, Ryan. Will you be traveling somewhere to see the solar eclipse this August? What are your viewpoints on solar eclipses? Well, to answer your question, I don't know if I will or not. Viewpoints on solar eclipses? Well, it's a naturally occurring phenomenon that is rare, but I think it's an interesting thing. That's mostly it. I don't think there's anything really hidden behind them. I mean, I don't think that there's, you know, two suns or anything like some people do. You know, I don't think that one sun is hiding behind the other, or any of that. It is neat to see the pictures of the sun's corona, I think they call it, when it's obscured. But I don't really have any significant thoughts. I don't think it's any sort of special communication or message or anything. I just believe that the solar eclipses are just a very fascinating, naturally occurring phenomenon, just based on the placement of the planets, really. Hello. Thought I'd send you a piece of fan art I made a couple months ago, since in your latest VORW you said you hadn't received much lately. It's pixel art in the style of an NES game. If you decide to use it in a VORW, that'd be awesome. Thanks for everything, from Chris. Chris, thank you. Thank you for your submission, and thank you for all of the time and energy you invested into creating this piece, so thank you. And it will certainly be featured in this VORW program, so thank you again for all your hard work, Chris. And that's greatly appreciated, and I like the style of it all, too. It's like a cool vintage NES game there, with the good old lecturer front and center. That reminds me, if anyone's interested, I don't expect there to be too many takers, but it's worth it if anyone is interested. For those of you who listen to the VORW radio program, because the VORW radio broadcast is broadcast to the world, obviously it may be heard by listeners who may have English... Ooh, there's a low-flying plane. Wonder if I can see it. No, it's just above the clouds. No, I couldn't see it, oh well. It was just obscured by some low clouds. Oh, but anyway, the radio broadcast may be listened to by listeners who may speak English as a second language, and they may have some English knowledge, but they may be primary speakers of a different language first. If you are interested, and again, it really depends. I mean, I don't expect there to be too many takers, but we had a few listeners in Japan a few weeks ago record station IDs for the VORW broadcast in Japanese. I thought that was very cool, and I included them in the broadcast, and I still do. And it helps also resonate this broadcast with the listeners in Japan as well, even if it's something as simple as having a station ID in their native language. You know, they thought it was pretty neat, and they liked it. My petition is this: if you are interested at all in recording a station ID for the VORW radio broadcast, it would mostly just be something like something as simple as you are listening to VORW Radio International, or that's pretty much it. This is VORW, the international service of the Report of the Week. Anything along those lines. If you want to have your voice heard, you can record a station ID for the VORW Radio International program. It can be in any language you want, though some of the specific languages may be Spanish, Portuguese, French, Korean, Chinese, and also German, too. But any other languages are accepted, too, you know. I mean, I had someone volunteer to record an ID in Esperanto, of all languages. I never thought I would hear that. But if it sounds like an idea, and you would therefore have your recording played periodically on VORW broadcasts to come around the world, so that listeners, again, who either don't speak English or are English second language speakers, would just have something that VORW can resonate with them a little more, even if it's something as simple as a station ID in their own language. If that concept interests you, you can send an email to either repweekinterview1@gmail.com or VORWinfo VORWinfo@gmail.com. And again, it's up to you. It's, you know, just something to look at with these broadcasts going forward. If I had the ability to do it, I would just do it. But unfortunately, my language learning abilities just aren't the best, and I'm not going to try to haggle with a translating system and try to do an ID and just mispronounce everything. So, it's up to you. It's obviously something that I need to be kind of careful with, because I got to make sure that if anything does get sent in, it's not something terribly offensive in that language, but we'll see going forward. If it's something that genuinely interests you, though, you can, again, you can contact at those addresses, and we'll see. But anyway, on to what I was saying. Thank you, Chris, for the fan art. It's greatly appreciated. Let's see. Hey man, oh, actually before, let me just make sure this is still recording, with all due respect. Okay, good, we still are. Hey man, I'm currently listening to VORW number 144, and I gotta say, it really sets a different tone from the rest. Things are very turbulent right now on YouTube, old media versus new media. They just can't tolerate competition. The freedom to choose what content you want to listen to or watch, for me, is the main reason I use YouTube. I love the platform, even as far as to subscribe to YouTube Red. Today I canceled my subscription. I know it could be a double-edged sword, since I believe YouTube Red revenue goes to the creators, but I cannot support a platform that suffocates its own. I'd rather support directly as an independent viewer. Might not be much, but it's what I can do. Please don't stop your shows. Even if you have to record yourself on your phone talking, please don't stop sharing. We live on very important times for the shift of media and the way we consume content. This movement is being spearheaded by people like yourself. Passion, not money, driven shells. You matter. And then he also requested some Dominican, he says I'm from the Dominican Republic, music for the radio show. I hope it'll cheer you up. Well, thank you very much for your email, and thank you for your kind words and comments too. I understand what you mean about the YouTube Red. I know it can be a tricky situation. You know, I understand that, but you know, I understand. Our final letter. Hello, Ben here from Ohio. I've been a faithful listener now, and I found myself referencing past lectures on certain topics I find interesting. Shortwave radio has intrigued me quite a bit, as I'm a fan of less popular entertainment. What is the difference between AM radio and shortwave? Keep up the great work, from Ben. Thank you, Ben. Now, here's the best description. Okay. Think of, you know, AM radio. You know what it sounds like. You know how it is. Think of AM radio and shortwave radio pretty much to be like cousins. if you think of the sound quality difference of AM radio and FM radio, then, well, you know that it can be different. Vastly different, as a matter of fact. FM radio seems very clear. AM radio, as everyone says, is so staticky. But it's analog quality. In terms of sound quality, AM and shortwave pretty much sound exactly the same, though some shortwave signals will experience something known as fading, where the fading on shortwave signals is usually very quick, where the signal will just have a quick whoosh of static for a split second and it'll go back to usual. And some people consider that a nuisance, but I personally like that. I think it's actually very comforting to listen to the fading of the shortwave signals, especially with music. It gives a very, very unique sound to certain songs, and I have a tendency to record music from the shortwave broadcast because I sometimes prefer that sound quality even more so than the digital version, because it's such a unique environment. But anyway, the main difference from AM and shortwave is how these signals propagate. An AM signal, especially at night, can sometimes be heard as far away as a few hundred miles. And since you've said you listened to AM radio in the past, you might know this by tuning the AM dial from day to night. You'll notice there's a lot more stations to hear at night than there are during the day. Shortwave stations and shortwave stations can propagate their signal under the right conditions at very, very distant lengths. For instance, a 100 kilowatt transmitter here in Florida can broadcast a signal that reaches the entire continent of North America clearly, and a signal that can reach the whole continent of South America, and have a broadcast to Africa and a broadcast to Europe, all very clearly. So shortwave signals, what they're known for is their vast distance they can propagate. Now, before the internet, shortwave radio was extremely popular due to the fact that this was a lot of people's link to countries they would never really know much else about. But as the internet began to emerge and it started to become a World Wide Web, in parts of especially Europe and North America, shortwave radio really became a lot less popular. And while there are still more listeners in North America than you'd think, and I know that for a fact because I run a shortwave radio program, and from listener correspondence, I know there's still listeners out there, it's not as popular as it once was. One of the main places where shortwave is still very popular is in developing countries, specifically in Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and parts of South America and the Pacific, and also North Korea. And the reason why shortwave is still quite popular in these developing nations, to the fact that broadcasters as famous as the BBC still use shortwave. Voice of America uses shortwave. The Deutsche Welle, DW, still uses shortwave. There's many other big name broadcasters too. Radio France, RFI, uses shortwave. China Radio International uses it. NHK uses shortwave. The ABC of Australia used to use shortwave until they stopped just a couple months ago, to a lot of criticism. But the reason why a lot of these organizations still use shortwave is because the places they're broadcasting to just don't have the media infrastructure yet in their own country, that they cannot get news locally. Either A, there's no power, and no electricity, no internet to power any local FM transmitters, So these people have to rely on getting a broadcast from thousands of miles away that they can listen. Or another reason, of course, is because of government censorship. Say in places like Eritrea, for instance, where it's an oppressive state, and there's a lot of government censorship, Western broadcasters who allegedly broadcast free news and information will transmit their programs into the region because it can cross borders and people can hopefully listen, even if the radio, internet, and television services in that nation are being censored. They can still try and tune into an outside broadcaster on their shortwave radios to get that information that they may very well need. Shortwave radio is still applicable around the world in a disaster scenario. Say if there's a devastating hurricane, a terrible earthquake, a war, or even disease that kills lots of the population or destroys communication and infrastructure, and people still need, they still need information, even though the phone is down, the radio stations locally are down, there's no electricity, no internet, and just rampant rumors, word of mouth with no sources. How can people get their info? Say if something terrible happened in New York, for instance, and it impacted almost all of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. The BBC can use a high-power transmitter in the UK to beam a news broadcast across the Atlantic over to that affected region and have people listen as clearly as what a local AM station would sound like, and they can still get their news and information that way via shortwave. Of course, there's also shortwave is still used by certain countries to promote their own cultures and promote the country as a whole, to try to visit, and also share news and current events about what's going on in that country. And some of those stations are like Radio Romania International, the Voice of Turkey, the Voice of Indonesia, and so on, where they'll broadcast to a general audience just to promote their country and give people a cultural aspect of it. And some broadcasters also have programs to serve expatriates who might be listening elsewhere, such as the Voice of Greece and Radio Philippines, which tries to broadcast a shortwave service to the overseas Filipino workers. So shortwave still has many uses, but the biggest things are, number one, how the signals propagate. They can travel a lot farther. And number two, the content you can hear on shortwave is a lot different than what you would ever hear on AM or FM radio. And while you might be able to hear some of that content on the internet, it would take a lot of searching and clicking and trying to find the right things. Whereas on shortwave, all you need to do is extend the radio's antenna and just start turning the dial. And I think it's a lot easier to just listen that way than it is to hunt around for 30 minutes on the internet to just try and find the one program that you're looking for. So that's the big difference between AM and shortwave. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, well, that wraps up this broadcast. I know I said that this is going to be a shorter program, and that it is, and I'm sorry. As I said, I'm hopefully be feeling better next time I record this and get a program that's a little longer to you, who knows. But again, if you are interested in writing in, repweekinterview1@gmail.com is the address you can use. With that, thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Take care. This is VORW, the voice of the Report of the Week.